big bad smoke of Toronto. And we want to acknowledge the Mississaugas, the new credit on whose land that he's on tonight in downtown Toronto. And again, to continue in a good way, we'd like to sign ourselves in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. A little bit of a prayer in these difficult times. We are so excited that you joined us tonight. And just one final reminder about this session. Sarah is about to hit the record button if she hasn't already. And we are recording this session, and we'll be sending out the recording to all our participants. So take your worries off your plate. That will come to you probably sometime tomorrow afternoon. And again, a reminder to mute your microphone. Please turn off your camera to help with bandwidth. We're hoping that you'll have questions for Jon for towards the end of the session. Please put any questions that you have in the chat, and we will try to get to them. Anything that we can't get to, we will try to get back to you with the information. And we have lots of consultants that we can access at the board if you have very specialized questions. Social media tonight, if you're on Twitter, please consider tweeting using these hashtags. As I said, this event tonight is part of our OCSB STEAM Week, our very first one with the school board. So we hope you'll tweet using that hashtag. Also, I'm sure Jon would love to see what you thought of the session. So please consider tweeting at Jon Callegher. And also you can tweet at our school board official Twitter site, so that would be great. And hopefully we remember at the end of the night, for people who are still on the line, we have 2 copies of Shop Class as Soulcraft, which is a book that Jon recommended. And we're going to pair each of those copies that we have for our $2 prizes with a gift card for Tim Hortons. So good luck to everyone. Before I forget, I do also want to start by thanking Jon for being with us here tonight. Thank you to CSPA for promoting our event. And as always, thanks to our parents and OCSB educators for being with us. So as we're beginning to get ready for this, we are going to just introduce who Jon is. So Dr. Jon Callegher is the Executive Director of Job Talks. You may have heard of this site. Fantastic site. It's a research and media agency also that focuses on Canadian workers. Jon is on a mission to share his research about job satisfaction and the skilled trades in an age when such jobs are in high demand. And he's been invited to speak on CBC Radio, Global National, Cityline, and at conferences across Canada and the US. Jon is also a professor in the School of Marketing at George Brown College in Toronto, and he has a PhD in sociology from the University of Waterloo. Welcome, Jon Callegher. We're thrilled you're with us this evening.
Oh, Katie, thank you so much. And thank you and Sarah and your team and to everyone here for inviting me. I really do feel like this is going to be a wonderful evening. I'm glad that so many of you have carved away some time in your evening to allow me to share this message with you. My name, as Katie mentioned, is Dr. Jonathan Daniel Callegher, but please feel free to call me Jon. And as mentioned a little earlier, if anyone here was here earlier, there's a chat, and you can use that chat to enter some questions. It looks like it's going to be monitored, and I'll get to as many of those questions as I'm able to answer to the best of my ability at the end. I'll also ask a few questions along the way, and because that chat is available, it would be wonderful if you could provide your input into some questions that I'll have for you. So I'm just going to bring up a presentation, which you should be able to see the presentation momentarily and still have me in one of those corners. One of those.
We can see it.
All right, perfect. So I'm very excited to talk with you all today about 5 great reasons for a career in the trades. And again, that hashtag, I love that you're organized around a wonderful hashtag OCSB STEAM. I've studied, everyone, thousands of Canadian workers. So if anyone here who is in high school, I'm here to tell you that I'm one of those people who, it's not that common. After high school, I went to school for another 13 years. If you can imagine that, to do a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree, and then 7 years of a PhD. What happened along the way, everyone? Well, I got to look at all of my peers, my classmates, starting their lives, making money, becoming productive members of society, tax-paying citizens, and getting on with it while I was still in school. And I can't tell you how difficult of a circumstance that was, in great part because, I have to be honest, the particular area of study that I went into, in this case sociology, at the undergraduate level, there wasn't a job waiting for me outside of university. Similarly, many of my colleagues with a history degree or a geography degree or a psychology degree or a kinesiology degree, you have to, after going to university, find out if that credential is going to work for you. And if it's not, you got to be creative in getting it to work for you after you've spent so much time into earning it. So I became curious about other types of jobs, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I started studying Canadian workers. I studied thousands of workers across the country. And the most efficient way to do that, everybody, is through a survey. I'm sure you've all taken surveys before. The easiest ones are when you are presented with questions and you click on answers. That's the most efficient way to do it. So we did a very, very big survey that involved asking Canadians in all kinds of jobs to respond to certain statements about their work. And we called them work-related values statements. Now, here are a few examples, okay? We actually showed 50 statements to Canadians in different jobs across the country. And we asked them, is this statement true for you, partly true for you, or not true for you at all? So I encourage you, if there are any, I know there's many adults here who are working full-time, or any young people, if you have a part-time job, play along with me. True for me, partly true for me, not true for me at all. I like having the freedom to make my own decisions. I think my job is cool. My work brings me peace of mind. Doing my job makes me truly happy. True for me, partially true for me, not true for me at all. Most days I find my work stimulating. I feel a special bond with the people in my field. I like that I can be myself at work. Hard work pays off in my field. Now, everybody, we also asked about the negatives, because you can learn a lot by how people respond to negative statements about their work. For example, my job is much too stressful. If it wasn't for the money, I would quit my job tomorrow. How many here have said that? How many here know someone who has said that? Now, when you ask these questions, okay, or show these statements to thousands of Canadians and look at how people respond, you see patterns in the way people answered questions according to their jobs. So this is how those patterns worked out. You can see the square pegs, the bottom rungers, the musketeers, the comfortable, and the fulfilled. You can see square pegs at 11%, bottom rungers 25%, musketeers 15%, comfortable 21%, and the fulfilled 27%. And we call this a segments of the Canadian workforce. So what I want to do now is just spend a moment, okay, explaining each piece of the pie so you can see how they're different from each other. So square pegs, the unhappiest group, it's just a job. This is a group of the Canadian workforce who are only working for the money. This is an unfortunate circumstance to be in. Their education is not aligned with their work. They feel no sense of contributing to society. They can't articulate the difference they're making in the world. They're lacking meaning from their jobs. Altogether, everyone, they're unmotivated and unhappy, and that is about 11% of the Canadian workforce, the square pegs. So the square pegs, and the next is a very large group called the bottom rungers. You can see someday, this is a young man, he's looking up, he's hopeful. They are sure our future leaders. Young workers today are outgoing and engaged. They are also, however, impatient and frustrated, because young workers, especially those in office jobs, office-type jobs, are craving a clear career path. But what we're learning increasingly is that these younger workers are also competing for advancement with their older counterparts, who, as you probably well know, in office jobs are losing jobs today. And their jobs are in greater and greater jeopardy. And so older adults in the office workforce are busy looking out for themselves and not giving that kind of mentorship that many young workers were hoping to get. And so we call this the millennial malaise, a sense of blah, a sense of frustration that many young workers across different sectors of work, especially in office jobs, are dealing with. So you had the square pegs, the bottom rungers, and here we have the musketeers. All for one and one for all, you know that phrase with the three musketeers. We find many who are in the musketeers to be in the healthcare industry, more likely to be in the healthcare industry than other types of workers. If you know someone who works in the healthcare industry, my bet is that they are someone who puts other people first. That makes sense? They put themselves second. They're people pleasers. And this works well in their job because their job often, in most cases, involves caring for other people. They are, however, probably highly stressed out. And you may have seen that too in people you know who are hospital and healthcare workers. And they don't always have the ability to leave that stress at home, at work. Sometimes it comes home. Well, one good thing about musketeers is that they really like the people that they work with. And that solidarity with colleagues is one important reason that they keep coming back to a highly stressful environment where other people are before them. But make no mistake, and you just have to watch the news, especially in the last year, many in the healthcare industry are close to burning out. They even were before COVID-19. And there's always been a need to create more circumstances for breaks and time to decompress and let go of that stress and build in practices for a less stressful environment at work. So you remember square pegs, bottom rungers, musketeers, okay? Now we have the group that surprised everyone after doing this study, the comfortable. Don't mess with a good thing, where we find the majority of skilled trades, construction workers across Canada. These workers have something that is extremely coveted today, everyone. And anyone who is an adult in the workforce can relate to this. Those who are in the comfortable, especially those, as we found out now, are more likely to be in the trades, have work-life balance. This cannot be understated in terms of its importance, and I'm going to talk more about that later on. As I mentioned, many are tradespeople. They are settling down early because they can, because they're not saddled or burdened with tens of thousands of dollars in tuition debt from university. And they're able to start their lives earlier, buy homes, buy vehicles, buy second homes, start families at a much earlier age because they can, and doing so without the stress of having to pay back so much financial debt, something I'll talk about later as well. Okay, so square pegs, bottom rungers, musketeers, the comfortable. Lastly, everyone, we have the fulfilled. I'm doing what I'm meant to do. This is a group that, in contrast to work-life balance, have work-life integration. And we find this in those who work in education and upper-level management, who thrive off of bringing work home with them. We have educators here who are on the line. It's the evening. They're happy and willing to do that as part of their job. They have work-life integration. They may do marking on weekends, maybe take marking on vacation, do lesson planning on vacation, and so on. Another thing that we found, in addition to educators and people in management in the fulfilled, is we also found that many tradespeople are here too, because tradespeople can say that they get value from their work and they have control over their work. When you can see the results of your work immediately, when you can make things, repair things, every day you are having control over what you're doing and the output that you're putting forward. That can be very satisfying. And this is a reason why many who are in the fulfilled category are overwhelmingly satisfied. So to recap, everybody, we have one group of the Canadian workforce who are miserable, okay? The square pegs, unfortunately. And you have another group of the Canadian workforce who are unhappy, but they're hopeful about the future, bottom rungers. You have another group that's highly stressed out, but they do like the people that they're working with, and so that certainly keeps them coming back and getting through their jobs and finding happiness in their jobs. And then you have the happiest groups, the comfortable and the fulfilled. Now, if you were to just take your hand and draw a line down the middle of that pie chart, you will notice something. You will notice some good news. You'll notice that almost half of Canadians are happy in their jobs. Good news. Until you think about the other side of that. If the good news is that almost half of Canadians are happy in their jobs, well, the bad news is that more than half of Canadians are not happy in their jobs. But what we have learned, everyone, is that tradespeople are among the most happiest workers in the country. And we have the data to prove it. Before I continue, I want everyone to know that anytime you see an image of an individual with their job title next to them, know that I've produced a video of that worker, 3.5 minutes long, with footage of them at their job, talking about what they love about their jobs, and in some cases, everything including the salary that they're making. Now, what I want you to do, especially if you're a young person, is watch any one of these videos and start watching more and more with a parent next to you and have a conversation and discover together other areas of the trades. Because here's something I can tell you for sure. Most Canadians don't know what skilled trades are. And I was one of those people too, about 5 years ago. I was one of those people, if you said, what's a skilled trade? I would have said, like many others, I would have said a carpenter, a electrician, a plumber, right? 30% of Canadians will say, I have no idea. And I just saw a quick question in the chat. I will give you 2 websites where you can see these videos. I'll give those to you at the end of the presentation so you can have access to the websites that contain these videos. Thank you for asking that question. So there's so many jobs in the trades that many people don't realize. For example, agricultural equipment technician, tool and die maker, cabinet maker, sew and pastry chef is a trade. Automotive service technician is a trade. Hairstylists are trades. Mechanical insulators, chefs, machinists, welders, electricians, plumbers. And hold on now, if there are any young women in the audience, or if there are any parents in the audience who happen to believe, like many people do, that the trades are for boys, are for men, may I introduce to you, everyone, female welders, electricians, and plumbers, women iron workers, industrial mechanic millwrights, refrigeration and air conditioning mechanics, women truck and coach technicians, instrumentation and control technicians, women automotive painters. And once again, you can, at the end of this talk, I'll tell you where you can watch videos with each of these people who love their jobs, who are fulfilled in their work for many more reasons that I'm going to reveal to you today. What's the message here, everybody? It's loud and clear. A path to happiness exists in the trades. But unfortunately, what we know after studying workers is that there are certain groups of workers that aren't as happy as others. And we can zero in on this when we look at younger workers. So when we study all kinds of workers in Canada, we can look at younger workers too, in particular. And if I were to ask you, what do you say about young workers today? You might say, well, they're well-rounded, they're ambitious, they know a lot about the world thanks to their knowledge of technology, their access to technology, they're hopeful about the future, they're good people, they're motivated, they're entrepreneurial, all good things, all true. Unfortunately, though, there are some negative things that are also true about young workers today, and they are experiencing these in higher numbers than generations before them and compared to their adult counterparts. And it is, plainly speaking, bad news. Younger workers today are experiencing higher levels of feeling tired, stressed, worried, lost, and experiencing debt. Now, I'm going to talk with you about some of the causes, the very real causes of each of these emotions. And I will also talk to you about how those who work in the trades are much less likely than the rest of the Canadian workforce to experience these feelings and experiences. But first, let me ask you a question. Here's a little audience interaction. Just type it in the chat. I'd really appreciate it. How do you want to feel every day? If you could answer that question. How do you want to feel every day as I look over at the chat on this screen? Excellent. Oh, at peace, fulfilled. Enjoy your day, in control, valued, fulfilled, and satisfied, happy, motivated. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Happy again, at peace. Wonderful. Wonderful, everybody. Here's what I can tell you. Happy and satisfied, energized. The truth is, we actually want, as individuals, myself included, you want to feel all of these things at the same time. And our lives are simply a journey of bringing ourselves into balance when we're not feeling one of these things. It's why we eat certain things at certain times when we're feeling a certain way, or talk to certain types of people when we're feeling a certain way, or consume certain types of social media channels or YouTube channels, or watch certain types of television and movies. Okay, or have specific or read certain books and so on. We're trying to bring ourselves into balance when we're feeling tipped over negatively in one direction. So here's another question for you. What do you think is the number one emotion being felt in the last 5 years or so? The number one emotion being felt among younger workers, older workers across Canada, the United States, and I venture to say many other countries in the world. What's your guess? I see anxious. I see stressed, worried, isolated, fear, afraid, stress, fatigue. Wonderful. Thank you very much for those. And Kirk, the award goes to Kirk and Doreen, and I think a few others who said fatigue or tired. You are right. Everyone is tired. And we can make a connection to feeling tired, increased levels of being tired. In the last 5 years, to everyone the introduction of these devices into our daily lives. A wonderful tool that has brought the world's information to your fingertips and mind, but also the tool that for most of us, young people and older adults, 90% of the time or more use for personal entertainment and socializing. And what does that bring? Well, if you're just looking at entertainment, it keeps us up later and longer. Okay. And so our bedtimes get extended because we're watching that next episode. We're watching today, everyone. If you think about binge watching, we just celebrate binge watching and kind of joke about it. It's actually the equivalent of watching multiple movies a day. This isn't normal behavior, or it wasn't certainly 10 years ago. And before that, if you said to someone, yeah, I watch a couple movies every day, they would have looked at you like you were a bit nuts, okay, a bit off. They would have said, what's going on? We've normalized it today. And it keeps us up later, but our wake-up times stay the same. So everyone's tired. Now, what is the opposite of feeling tired? Okay, the opposite of feeling tired, if we're all feeling off balance in this direction, it's not awake, actually. It's not energized. The opposite of feeling tired, to bring us back into balance, what all of us are actually craving, whether we articulate it or not, is to feel the opposite of tired, and that is alive. And let me say it again, alive. When do you feel alive? Do you feel alive when you're sleeping? No, because you're sleeping. Do you feel alive when you come home? Usually not. You come home from work to eat, and you sit on the couch and engage in personal entertainment. You relax. Where is the opportunity to feel alive in the course of your 24-hour day? You know it. It's at work. It's at work. But the reality is, for many young workers, they do not feel alive at work in the prime of their lives, in their 20s and 30s. And even before COVID-19, before everyone was doing what I'm doing and sitting at a table looking at a screen, and what you're doing as well, before COVID-19, this was life. Get up, get into your commuting vehicle and sit. Go to work for 4 hours in the morning, sit some more at the job, at the office. Go for a 15 to half an hour lunch, walk around, sit back down for another 4 or 5 hours. Get back into your commuting vehicle, sit, come back home, sit to have dinner, sit on the couch, repeat. Repeat on Tuesday, repeat on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in the prime of their lives. And it's only been exacerbated today because we're constantly just sitting at home. Now, this is something that it cannot be understated. Will have, and is having, a negative effect on individual physical health and well-being. You know where it's not being felt. You know where it's going. In the trades. Tradespeople feel alive at work. Okay. Not only are certain jobs indoors, but also outdoors, or mostly outdoors, or mostly indoors. There's so much variety. They're getting up. I saw someone in the chat say to start their morning feeling like they're going to get something done. Tradespeople feel alive at work. I use my body and mind. My days are never boring. There's so much variety. You get to see the product of your work right away, not looking at the same document or PowerPoint every day for a week, 2 weeks until you finally submit it and then get feedback and then revise it. Seeing change every day. I saw something popped up there in the chat, feeling accomplished. Absolutely. So tradespeople feel alive at work, and that absolutely sort of brings balance to this sense of feeling tired that so many workers are feeling, but also very sadly among younger workers today. Stressed was something I saw in the chat as well. You were correct if you said stressed. This is experienced in very high numbers today, especially among younger workers, but older workers too. And we can, again, everyone, make a very close, we say, correlation, a connection between increased levels of stress and these devices that are attached to us. 10 years ago, we would have looked at this image and felt sad. Today, we just look at it and say, yeah, seen it, see it everywhere. We've normalized it. Now, if you can do this with me, stretch out your arms. Imagine that that is the length of time that humans have been on the planet. Okay? Now look at the tip of your fingernail, just the tip of that fingernail. That represents, along the timeline of humans on Earth, the amount of time that our brains have been able to get used to, acclimatize to this constant interruption, disruption, distraction into our everyday lives. And if you think it's bad now, I'll use that word, bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait until 5G technology arrives and you have lightning fast internet connectivity wherever you go. And balance that with artificial intelligence, our devices will become more addictive. Here's something I want to ask those parents. It's more of a rhetorical question. It's probably the case that many parents over the last several years have tried to create a sense of no device usage in their house for a period of an hour, or maybe at the dinner time. But it's very likely that mom or dad, you also, during dinner time, snuck a peek at your phone as well. In other words, for grown adults, well-meaning, well-intended, responsible adults, it is very difficult also for them to create a sense of balance in terms of not being attached to their devices. I submit to you that the best case scenario is that not being attached to your device is part of your job. So you have that separation between technology constantly interrupting you and your ability to focus on the job. And where can that be seen in much greater numbers than the rest of the working population? You know, it's in the trades. Tradespeople have work-life balance built into their jobs. They are not, first of all, expected at work to be constantly on their devices. In fact, it's discouraged or not allowed in some areas because you have a responsibility to get things done in an efficient way, to be proud of your work, to give it your full attention, not watch something on a YouTube channel on another screen while you're supposedly getting work done, which is what many people are getting in the habit of doing. You leave work at where you do your work and then leave work at work and come home to our devices. And that leads to much greater sense of not only physical health, but mental health and well-being. I'm not on my phone all day. I can manage my time for my convenience. I love this in terms of work-life balance. I'm usually home by 5. Anyone here who started an office job knows that the biggest surprise of an office job is that it's not 9 to 5, is it? It's 8 to 6, 9 to 6, sometimes 9 to 7, and sometimes on your weekends too. And those in the trades, for the most part, they can work past 5, but it's a different kind of work environment where you get paid for working that overtime. And that's not something that's offered in most other salaried positions. So we had feelings of tired, stressed. I also saw in the chat, worried, anxiety, and you would be correct. Do you know how many people lost their jobs in Ontario within the first 3 months of COVID-19? 1.1 million Ontarians lost their jobs in the first 3 months of COVID-19. Another 1.1 million had their hours significantly cut. If you're a young worker and you're looking around and you're seeing your older counterparts suddenly open for work, looking for jobs, you better believe that'll make you anxious about the future and wondering about your own security, your job security. And that is a reality for many young workers today. Well, here's a wonderful table. You remember those statements I talked about at the beginning? Well, here are how tradespeople responded to those statements in terms of being true for them compared to the rest of Canada, so other Canadian workers, how they answered or responded to those statements. So you have, looking starting at the left, most days I feel like I've put in an honest day's work. Close to 3/4, okay, 73% of tradespeople compared to just 2/3 of the rest of Canada said that's true for them. My work gives me a sense of success and achievement. Over 2/3, 68%, compared to less than half of Canadians. I often have fun at work, 60% to 43%. But look at the last line, everybody. Nowadays, I often feel worried. Just 17% of tradespeople compared to 42% of the rest of Canadians. That's 3 times more Canadians are worried about their jobs than those who work in the trades. Everyone, the answer may not surprise you as you're sort of paying attention through this presentation, and as you'll learn a little more, tradespeople have skills security. Not only do they work in environments where they get exposure to other types of jobs and get a familiarity and interacting with other types of jobs, should the need come to change jobs, to move to another sector within a particular field, they might be able to do that, or they're more able to do that with less barriers. But also, more broadly, water is water, wood is wood, electricity is electricity, okay? The earth is the earth, okay? I could keep going. A foundation is a foundation. Tools are tools, and you are able to use these across different provinces, different countries, and even in different languages, and be able to get up to speed much more easier than people in other types of jobs. So tradespeople have skills, security. The skills you develop are highly transferable. A trade is portable. So this is Megan. She's an insulation installer, and she puts insulation in between, the drywall in homes and condos, but she also gets exposure on the job to tapers and drywallers and trim carpenters and other types of finishers and so on. Who wants to talk about money? Nobody, right? Who wants to talk about debt? Definitely nobody. Well, let me just paint you a picture, okay? And this is just the reality. Just accept it for what it is. You got 2 groups of graduates. One group of graduates, if their parents weren't able to or didn't pay for their university education, will either have to somehow pay tens of thousands of dollars over 4 years for a university education and graduate having to make that money in advance, but more likely they had to take out a loan. So they start the completion of their formal post-secondary education in debt. So if you're curious, for anyone here who hasn't looked that far into the future, 4 years of university, if you stay home and live with your parents, including the cost of books, it's between $30,000 and $40,000 after 4 years. Add tens of thousands of dollars more if you want to go somewhere else. And if that's on the table, and it's going to be paid for you, you don't have to worry about having to pay for it. But if you do, you're going to have to pay it back after you graduate. In other words, you pay first, and then you find out if that credential is going to get you a job while also paying for that credential. Okay? So that's one group of workers, or graduates rather. The other group of graduates might have started an apprenticeship in high school through the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program and continued that apprenticeship after high school towards becoming a journey person and starting their life in their early 20s, making money. But also, during the apprenticeship, they got paid, because apprentices in Ontario must be paid. So even through that journey, they're getting paid. They're not paying first for the training and then finding out if they're getting a job. They are getting paid while learning. So that is a stark contrast between people who have a university education and people who went into the trades. And also, you could go to college as well and do a 2 or 3 year program, a trades related program, have an apprenticeship, get paid through that apprenticeship, and go to through your journey person after you graduate. And again, similar, you're getting paid while learning. For me, in terms of finances, that's the biggest difference between a university education and a college college or trades education. I started earning when I was 19. That's not me, everybody. I started earning when I was 29. And I can tell you, I wasn't making the same at 29 as someone in the trades was making at 19 or 20. I can tell you that. You can support a family on it. Is that important to you? Do you want to? Are you type that, or do you want to be able to make money for your current family or your future family? Well, know that you will be able to do so and have, in many cases, benefits and a union community around you, another type of family that doesn't really exist in many other types of jobs, if you consider a skilled trades career. That's one reason to keep that on the table if the idea of paying a lot for education isn't for you. I also want to make this point. Don't get confused and think that people who are in the trades because they couldn't get into university. Okay? Far from it. Many people are in the trades because they didn't need to go to university, or they didn't want to trade tens of thousands of dollars for a certificate, a piece of paper, and have to try to find work with that piece of paper afterward. Okay? And you will also see, when you watch the interviews with the people that we've put on camera, that any of these people could have went to university just by listening to the way they speak about their jobs and how smart they sound. And I'm going to talk more about smart later on. So lastly, here on this topic of emotions, lost. So the more you know about the world, thanks to our devices, the irony is the more questions we have. What's my purpose in life? Where am I going? What's my contribution that I can make to my community, to society? Am I making a difference? Well, guess what? Tradespeople can articulate an answer to that question very easily. They make a measurable difference in the world. Mom and dad, talking to you. Can you, in addition to being, good tax-paying citizens, contributing to our economy, helping pay for the programs that we all enjoy in Ontario and Canada. In addition to that, can you say through your specific job that you're making a difference in the world? I happen to know that many adults have trouble answering that question. They got to get creative when trying to come up with an answer. But Tradespeople don't struggle with that answer at all. I help, for example, make Canada's businesses and institutions modern and safe. I build, I maintain hospitals, homes, okay, stadiums. I contribute to the wellness of my community. And by the way, you also get mentors. Do you need a mentor? Is your family structure as is, where you look at and you say, I would benefit from having a mentor in my early adulthood? Well, you are likely to get that mentor in the trades compared to other areas of work. 80% of workers in the trades were prepared by mentors. And anyone here who is a tradesperson, if you are on the line, you can relate to this. And I know that it's celebrated and really treasured, this idea of mentoring the younger worker who later becomes a mentor themselves and trains the future generation. It is passed down for generations, and it's very special. It's also why we find tradespeople in the fulfilled category of workers as well, because tradespeople, like educators, teach as well. Okay, so Jon, you're saying all these great things, right, about the trades. If they're so great, why is there a shortage? Well, I'll give you a few reasons. And I think if we look at these reasons as a small group and as we talk to others, we can make some change across Ontario. So the first is we just have a narrow perception, right? We don't celebrate tradespeople on primetime TV and in movies, okay? It's the same thing for the last 40 years. Doctors, lawyers, business people, right? Police officers, firefighters, healthcare workers. That's what we see on TV. So when you're younger, and those are the images that you're exposed to, it can't go any other way. You're going to maybe consider those types of jobs first. When do we see jobs in the trades? Well, hardly ever, except, in your daily life, if you're exposed to them when you walk by a construction site. That's when we might, because they're so big and they're so obvious, because tradespeople are actually around us all the time. But what we see is a big construction site, and we see a man in a pit, right, of dirt, toiling away in the hot, cold, or in the extreme heat or the extreme cold. What we don't see is another side, which also happens to be the truth. We don't see Larissa, who is a bulldozer operator in Kitchener-Waterloo, who loves her job, okay? Who went through a college program, got an apprentice, continued through that apprenticeship. They hired her full-time, and she has work-life balance, a sense of accomplishment, very fulfilled, and starting her life early as an independent adult. We don't think of, when we're walking by that construction site, we don't think of tile setters, insulation installers, welders, framers, concrete and drain specialists, excavator operators. We don't think of trim carpenters, site supervisors, stonemasons, carpet installers, drilling superintendents. This guy travels the world digging foundations for bridges. Health and safety managers. We don't think of handyman and bulldozer operators, bricklayers, mobile crane operators, if you want to stay low. Want to go high? Tower crane operators, tunnel boring machine operators. Look at how young these faces are, most of them. And they're happy in their jobs. They're confident. They're smart. They have work-life balance. They're making excellent salaries and benefits, and they're starting their lives early as independent adults. And they don't have debt. The other reason, I hope we have some parents here, the other reasons why we can attribute a shortage of skilled trades workers is because we rely certainly on the younger generation to fill jobs, and parents in large numbers simply aren't telling their kids about the trades. And that is understandable because, as we've demonstrated earlier, people don't know a lot about the trades. And parents, when you want to protect your kids, your primary emotion, your primary emotion in response to your kids or in consideration of your children is to protect. Parents want to protect their kids. And in doing so, they tell them what they know. And what parents, quote unquote, know is if you want a good life, go to university. Except if you're a parent in the trades, because you know that if you want a new life, you could go into the trades. But parents have, in many cases, a very romantic idea of university as a place of higher learning where their child will go and, interact one-on-one with a professor who's been studying something for decades, and they question them and they get questioned back and they challenge each other. And after 4 years, they leave that institution of higher learning, standing on their shoulders of that professor, seeing the world a little bit further than they did. It's a beautiful thing. The reality, and this was the case even for me back in the year 2000 when I started university, is that you will enter university and leave as a number. And your classes in those first few years are 200 to 400, 500 people. And you are a student number. And if you want that one-on-one relationship, you got to do what Dr. Callegher did here and do 7 years of a PhD. And it's not until later in those years do you get that one-on-one relationship that we romanticize about university. I'll also say here, if there's anyone on the line, on the call, who is what you could be described as an immigrant, a new immigrant, and in your life in Canada, you want your child to have a good job, and you have an understanding that a good job is a doctor, lawyer, business person, or engineer. Make no mistake, those are great jobs, but know this as well. While being a doctor, lawyer, engineer, business person are great jobs, these are also jobs that also require a lot of time. And while these workers make good money, yes, which is what presumably you want for your child, they are also, remember, time poor, because they're working 80 to 100 hours a week, sometimes earning that money in that very busy job. So if you want your children to be there for you in your life, mom and dad, when you're older, to be present in your senior years, think about the trades as well. Because the trades, as we talked about earlier, offer work-life balance and good salary and benefits, and you'll actually see your kids in your older years, because they have work-life balance. They leave work at work, and they are able to spend more time with their families. Lastly, yes.
Perfect. I was just about to say we are getting close to the end of our hour, but that's great. We'll let you finish that thought, and maybe we can get to a couple of questions.
That's great. I just have 5 minutes. So thanks for that. The last is educators, everyone. So educators have a tendency to celebrate academic intelligence, right? And this is changing slowly. But if you have two students, one student that can easily recite a poem in a beautiful way and wow everyone in the room, and you have another student who, can tell you how roads and bridges are built, which one's smarter? Well, I say they're both smart. One has academic intelligence, the other has balanced intelligence. And balanced intelligence are individuals who see patterns in the real world, who are hands-on learners, who have an attention to detail, and who have situational awareness. And they enjoy using their brain and their body. So if that's any of you here, if that is your child, or if you're a student and you see yourself checking one of those boxes, keep the skill trades on the table. So what are 5 great reasons for a career in the trades? Feel alive at work, have work-life balance, skills security, get paid while learning, and be able to articulate a difference in the world. If that's inspiring to you, take a tech class, see if specialist high-skilled majors are available in at your particular school, and also look at the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. If you're 16 years of age, 16 credits, grade 11 or 12, you're eligible to start that program and start getting paid while learning during an apprenticeship. So you can, as promised, go to jobtalks.org to see videos of people in Red Seal trades who love their jobs, or go to jobtalksconstruction.ca and look at workers in residential and infrastructure-related construction. So thank you so much, everyone. Happy to take any questions in the time that we have remaining. And if I need to stay later, I'm happy to stay later as well. Thank you.
We have 3. Thanks so much, Jon. That was incredible. We do have 3 questions that were in the chat. The first one is from Shelley Zhang. Would trade workers have more work-related injuries than other occupations? And if so, or if not, do you have any data about
here's what I wouldn't say. I can't speak to the data on that. I can say that I've been to close to 100 work sites, and I've never been allowed on site without having every possible safety measure in place in terms of my physical attire and completing health and safety checks and an orientation and listening at every spot on a work site to individuals communicating very actively about health and safety measures when they're doing their jobs. So I don't have the data, but I will say that there is this misconception that trades are dangerous jobs, right? While certainly any job that requires you to work around, heavy machinery or construction equipment and things like that, sure, there's potential, but you get a lot of training to avoid that. But, I'm someone who sits around all day. I have to go to physiotherapy because I have a really bad shoulder from using my mouse all the time. I didn't think that was going to happen to me. I'm not even 40 years old yet, and I go to physiotherapy for my shoulder. Look at workers in the healthcare industry. Think about that. You've seen the news. Some workers are afraid to even come home and spend time with their families because they're around, unfortunately, a communicable disease right now. Which one's more dangerous if you look at it in that context, right? And that's just stating some realities. Okay, thank you for that question. I hope I'm answered the best I could.
We also have a question. How do you see the effects of COVID impacting apprenticeships? Have you noticed anything like that? And there was a nice little thank you for Shelley for that first question.
Thank you. I know that it's more connected to industries being open, right? Industries have to be open and available to work in order to hire those apprentices. So probably they're down, but what we've seen in the news is that more and more, I know the construction sector has been designated as essential in many of, it's a massive sector, but residential construction has been designated as essential, and as other types of jobs, as we open back up, I would expect that apprenticeships availability will go back up as well. I think across the board, hiring has been down. But that doesn't mean that those jobs aren't essential and won't bounce back. There are some jobs, as you know, there are companies who've realized they can save money by having people work at home and cut staff. That's not true when the work is done outside. Still needs to be done.
We also have a question. What would you suggest is the best way to immerse children with exposure to the trades?
Oh, that's a great question. I know, and I can't name them, but I know there's some fun sort of Netflix programming around there. Do a search. You'll be able to find someone aimed at kids. Another one I've seen is it's something along the lines of Robot Wars, right? Where you make little robots, or Bot Wars, something like that. But beyond that, really, there's a great push in recent years to just fold the trades into the curriculum at an early age. Make math problems about something going on a construction site or on, a manufacturing center, right? Try to use construction trades related vocabulary by introducing it in the curriculum, in different areas of the curriculum in school.
That's awesome. And I know,
of course, watch the Job Talks videos too.
I know that Sarah does want to chime in. She's got a little bit of information that she would like to share with our parents tonight about that as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Guidance and Pathways Consultant at the OCSB, and I've been working with Katie on our hashtag OCSB STEAM Week this week. And part of STEAM Week is really to educate students at all levels about the trades. So right from kindergarten through to grade 12. One of the activities our grade 4 students are doing this week is building propeller cars and learning about that. So lots of things that we are doing at all grade levels to help with the trades exploration, but a few things specifically for high school students that they can do as they move along in their schooling to get some exposure. Definitely trying to take some tech courses in high school. Starting in grade 9, we have an exploring technology course that students can take where they can try out a variety of different things. And then moving on to grade 10, 11, and 12, we have transportation and manufacturing, construction, hairstyling, hospitality, a whole bunch of courses. And you can check at your child's school to see which ones they offer as electives. In grade 11, students can start taking co-op, and cooperative education allows students to spend half of their school day in a job placement. A lot of them are trades placements, if that's what the student is interested in, or interested in exploring to see if it is something that they might like. And as part of that, as John mentioned, they can become OYAP members, so they can be starting to earn those hours for their apprenticeship while they're still in high school. As well, we have a partnership with Algonquin College, so some students are taking their level 1, so that first set of courses that they need to take for their apprenticeship, and that is happening while they're still in high school. We also have a dual credit program where students are able to take a college course through Algonquin and earn a high school credit at the same time. And a lot of those courses are apprenticeship related courses or trades related courses, baking and pastry arts, exploring the trades, all kinds of things there too. And then finally, we have our specialist high skills majors programs that again, John mentioned, and check with your child's school to see which ones they offer. But we have transportation, construction, hospitality and tourism, manufacturing, information communication technology, environment, health and wellness. And these are just a few of the programs that are offered within our high schools. And within those programs, students can explore these trade areas. They get to communicate with community partners. They have to do co-op as part of that program. So there are lots of ways that students can explore trade areas while they're in school. And we really, really encourage you and your children to meet with their guidance counselors and ask their teachers about ways that they can explore these areas.
Okay, John, we have a few more questions. One from Carla McGregor. She wanted to know about going into a trade after taking a university degree. Is it harder to get into a skilled trade after you've done a university degree?
It depends on, so no, I wouldn't say that. I would say you certainly could get a university degree, enter a trade, and that might, Carla, also enable you, depending on what you learned at university, to go into project management side, right? In an office, for example, for a big one of these massive construction companies who need project managers and designers and people who work in office. So to be able to have that balance of on-site experience and maybe later on move on to an office environment, that's a great combination if you're able to get a university degree. Of course, the trade-off is you start a little later in the trades than other people, but a big message here is certainly there's a demand in many types of trades, such a widespread industry that should not set you back.
Great question in the chat as well. I think this is from a student who says that they've got a learning disability with reading. Is a job in the trades a good job for me?
Well, certainly there are jobs in the trades that I can think of. A massive sector is the construction sector, right? And if many people who grow in their careers in the construction sector, it doesn't sound like a nice title. I've said that before publicly. It's called a laborer, right? And a laborer is someone who helps on job sites by moving things, cleaning things, but learning as you go, and then eventually being moved onto the tools, onto the machines, and so on, and working in other areas on site. So you start off that way, and you can get on-the-job training by doing things that certainly don't require a lot of reading. But I'll just throw this out too for anyone for whom it's meaningful. And I don't like to talk about money. When I say laborer and some people go, ugh, it's a weird thing in the construction industry. You'll start as a laborer at $50,000 a year. And 5 years later, you're still a laborer, but you're making $85,000 a year or more. And it's a fascinating thing with that industry, and I've tried to tell them, you have to change job titles. You have to make it sound like you're advancing to attract more workers, right? Similar to how in the armed forces, you have your badging systems as you move up. So a lot of it is the way we market these types of jobs. But to the student who asked that question, don't let the reading disability hold you back.
Hey, Ming Tao Wu wants to know, is interior design a job that is in the trades?
It's connected to the trades. I don't think specifically that interior design is categorized as one, in the same way that an architect is not considered a trade. It's, what would it be called? A professional career, or a skilled trade versus a professional trade. I'm not really sure how to categorize it, but you certainly, if you want to benefit and grow your body of knowledge in interior design, it helps to get a foundation, which is great to take a tech class, for example, and learn about what it takes to build a home, things that we take for granted, keeping walls straight, right? How to install trim, where to start when installing tile, and all kinds of little things that may not only make you a good interior designer, but help you communicate and understand the people who will be implementing your design recommendations. It's tradespeople. It's a great question.
And I think we have one last question, and this is from Joel Vaillancourt. And then we'll pull our winners for our door prizes this evening. Joel, we hear that there is a demand. Joel says, we hear there is a demand for trades, but how easy is it to find a journeyman to sponsor you?
Yeah, so this is a challenging question to answer because the trades are so broad. But here's my answer to that question. The best answer I can give, based on my understanding, and I don't want to put words in your OYAP representative's mouth, but based on my understanding, it is almost guaranteed that you will get an apprenticeship if you do it in high school, because the OYAP person's responsibility is to help you find that apprenticeship. right? And make those long-term connections, ideally with someone who can be relied on to sponsor you as a journey person down the line, having those connections. It is certainly an issue that it can be a challenge to have someone sponsor you as a journey person, but your odds are better, based on what I've been hearing, if you start that apprenticeship in high school.
That's awesome. All right, we will get to your question, Jon, but we have run over time. So just before we do get to your question, Jon, we are going to do our door prizes for this evening. So the winner of this wonderful book that Jon recommended, called Shop Class as Soulcraft, as well as a gift card to Tim's for two of our people who stayed on the line. Congratulations to Valerie McLaughlin. Way to go. And ironically, because you just asked the last question, we had already pulled your name earlier. Joel Viancourt, you also have won the book, and we'll make sure that we get these to you. So maybe we'll close with Jon Meyer's question, and we'll say goodnight after that. So Jon says, I know this is a very general question, but what is the cost difference between university and a trade?
Well, $40,000. You know, if you go to university and stay at home, you're looking at between $30,000 and $40,000. And there are many here who could walk onto, you know, make an acquaintance with someone at a trade and in a particular trade, and get on the job training to start that trade. But I think maybe the question more is around starting in some kind of program, a college program or trades related program. I don't have those numbers, but you know, it's depending on when you go, I imagine you can get yourself certified for depending, you know, anywhere from $10,000 or less. But I shouldn't make those claims, because every trade is different. But by most measures, you know, going to university is way more expensive than starting a trades training career path.
Well, I know I've learned a lot from our time together with you today, Jon. Thank you so much for your generosity of time, your kindness, your knowledge base that has been so helpful. I really learned a lot this evening. We also want to thank CSPA for promoting tonight's event. We want to thank all of our parents and our educators who have been on the line with us tonight. And we also want to thank the Ottawa Catholic School Board for letting us do this STEAM Week. So have a great evening. We will be sharing the recording with you as soon as we get a moment. And good luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. And thanks for the wonderful comments there. That's terrific.